I think back pretty fondly on my dorm room experience, however short lived it was. It was easily the best part about going to college. I met some of the best friends I've ever had while living there. There were parts, however, that were miserable. It began in 2018. On Pratt's campus, I was in the Vincent A. Stabile dorm building for my freshman year. Stabile was an architect who graduated from the school, and most of the buildings he designed were either prisons or high schools. Walking around the dorm, you could really tell. It had this big, beautiful lobby, but the dorms themselves were these brick and mortar cubes with concrete floors. No kitchen either. If you wanted to use a stove, you had to bring your dishes and ingredients to the communal kitchen that was shared between 50 some people. The rooms were laid out as suites. Each dorm had a bathroom that connected to the dorm next door. The bathrooms had these big industrial chrome sinks and a little indent of a shower, just a small space in the corner that was walled off with tile. There were a lot of ground rules for Stabile residents. You couldn't shower with the door open, or else you'd set off very sensitive smoke detectors. That also meant you had to limit smoke of all types. That wouldn't bother me normally because I don't smoke, but given that we were a building full of New York art students, that shit would go off once a week. Whenever the smoke detectors went off, it would trigger an alarm in the entire building and immediately contact the local fire department. Everyone would have to evacuate and wait in the cold for half an hour or so before we could go back inside. The thing that bothered me the most was the fact that the bathroom's doors didn't lock. Some sort of safety precaution. Oftentimes, I would rather go down to the lobby and use the bathroom there if I wanted to shit in peace. Me and my roommate were cool, we had a system, but my suite mates, the two guys living in the room connected to our bathroom, they had people over a lot. My roommate and I were both film majors, and we had a lot of expensive camera equipment in our room, so we agreed that we didn't really want drunk people in our dorm, just in case. We were mostly quiet kids, we kept to ourselves, and we each had a small group we'd hang out with some overlap, usually at their dorms. The guys on the other side were these architecture majors. It was really strange, but every architecture major I ever met was this preppy dude bro type. Everyone else at Pratt were either really eccentric or out there and probably children of professional artists, or people like me, kids from the suburbs who wanted to get a taste of the big city. These architecture guys, they like to blow off steam, and I don't necessarily blame them. The architecture curriculum was 2 years longer than everyone else's, and the amount of work they're required to do is insane. Looking back, it makes my film education feel like an expensive summer camp. So they would have these weekly gatherings, people getting drunk or high or both, and usually trashing our joint bathroom. They were pretty good about cleaning up after, but I remember one time I went in there the next morning and I found a bunch of condoms blown up like balloons. That was pretty funny though. The worst of it was if I ever had to use the bathroom when they were going at it. Without fail, there'd be a pretty girl walking in on me taking a shit. That can only happen so many times before it starts to leave a major dent in your self-image. The next year I was in Willoughby, which was the largest dorm on campus. It was like an 18-story building, and me and my friends scored a room on the 5th floor so we wouldn't have to wake up extra early and wait for the elevator before class. There were a couple of room variations in that building, but me and my buddies went for a 2-bedroom arrangement. One side was the bathroom with 2 beds, and the other was 2 beds and a small kitchen. Actually having a source of water inside my room was a huge plus. There was now a less than 5% chance I'd be walking in on someone using the bathroom whenever I would try to get a glass of water. Looking back, I really miss those days. Movie nights on our shitty TV, blasting J-rock and emo music, staying up drinking till 4 in the morning. The only bad part of the whole experience was the fact that we were right next door to the RA. I felt so bad for that girl. We would stay up pretty late, regardless of whether or not we were drinking. We spent a lot of our time in there, either playing video games or editing projects for class, but the building had these really thin walls. There were times when we were all in bed asleep, and one of us would hear the RA and her boyfriend going at it. I remember being woken up a couple of times in the middle of the night to find my roommates all huddled next to the wall, giggling in their underwear. She'd be over once every other week asking us to keep it down, constantly threatening to write us up to Pratt's housing department, but thankfully never actually committing. We might have been the only dorm on that floor, maybe even the whole building, where every person living there was good friends with each other. In the context of an entire floor being dead quiet, full of hard-working illustration and graphic design majors, a room filled with casual conversations seemed like a jet engine in comparison. After sophomore year, we secured the same dorm, but we were only in it for a semester and a half until COVID hit. We had to finish that semester and the next online, and for me, I wasn't back in a college classroom in person since this past summer of 2022. There was a while that I was worried I'd never have an arrangement like that again, either stuck in Maryland or living with strangers. But it worked out alright in the end. Now I'm living with the same people I was way back when, and it's pretty nice. I always look back and think what my life would be like if COVID never happened, and I got to finish my college education properly instead of muddling it with awkward online classes and some breaks in between. Even though I'm in my last semester right now, there's a part of me that still feels like my college experience ended in March of 2020, having to head home and separate myself from the best parts of going off to school. No big city to explore, no longer being around a large number of people who all help each other make films, no hanging out, drinking late at night with my friends. I was stuck with only the worst parts, the responsibility. Stuck in a small town, working a shitty job, still required to attend classes and do homework, yet feeling completely disconnected from what I was pursuing. I'm left feeling jaded, disinterested, no longer wanting to pursue a career in film after school's finished. Who knows if I ever felt that way, but I can't help but feel like I was robbed. End of the day, what helps most is understanding that I'll never know what life would be like today if I got to stay in New York, and things aren't all that bad right now. Still got my close friends, my family, and most importantly, Metroid Prime Remastered, baby!